Hey superstars, welcome to the Get Rich Without Being a Bitch podcast, and I am your host, Vanessa for this journey. We're going to be challenging some stereotypes, shattering glass ceilings, really looking at what it takes to live richly and to design a business that's going to support the life that you really want to be living. I'm going to be sharing lots of tips, tools, and strategies along the way, and I can't wait for you to join me on this journey. Hey superstars, welcome back to another episode of Get Rich Without Being a Bitch. And I am your host for this episode that we're going to be talking about one specific area that is really your responsibility as a business owner. This is a leadership requirement, and it is about crafting a compelling vision for your business, right? For the future, for what you are wanting to create. It is really your responsibility and only your responsibility as a business owner. Now, okay, I'll come back. Caveat is unless you have partners, right, that are also involved in your business. But many of the women that I work with, they are the business owner. They are the leader. And it's been interesting that sometimes when we talk about crafting that compelling vision, that sometimes women have even said, wow, I love doing this stuff, but I kind of feel guilty about doing it. I feel like this is the fun stuff and I kind of like should be doing the drudgery over here. Like I should be in the weeds and doing all the other stuff. No, absolutely not, right? This is really a requirement for your role that only you can do. And I want to share with you a couple of different ways to think about this and really why it's important, right? When we don't have a vision, something that we are moving towards, this is when you're at the risk of burnout. This is when we start to get into what I just said, like that drudgery, the weeds. It's just like time and time again, we are doing the same things. It can feel like we're, coasting, same old, and there's nothing to excite us. I'm a firm believer in projects. Sometimes we work on things that are a small project that energize us, setting goals, having that bigger vision, something that you might take years to work towards. But these things are really, really important and hugely motivating, not to mention the fact that they serve as an anchor for things to keep coming back to, especially when things get tough. Because they will get tough, right? Business is just like life, has its ups and downs. It's not all plain sailing. And I will say, if it were that easy, everybody would be doing it. But I want to start to think about that lens of vision slightly differently. We've got to be really careful that when you craft your vision, it is yours. It is uniquely yours. That you feel aligned with it, right? That it really speaks to something that you desire, a contribution you want to make in the world, value that you want to bring to the world. And not, which is a trap that many people fall into, is a vision of what you think you should be doing. And perhaps this is examples that you've seen elsewhere in business. Perhaps you worked in bigger firms, bigger organizations before, you saw it there, and you end up going down this track and you end up building something that frankly is misaligned with you, and it's going to bite you in the backside at some point in the future. So alignment is really, really important, and that comes from within. We don't get to craft vision. I say this so often to our clients, we have to take time for it. You don't get to craft your vision for what you really want, and especially when you're building a bigger vision that, as I say, may take years to work towards. You don't get to build that in the cracks of your busyness, right? In the cracks of your schedule, like those little 5-minute blocks here and there. No, you need time, you need spaciousness. You need to be able to do a first draft of it. You need to be able to revisit it. You need to come back and ask those questions. Does this really feel aligned with what I want? That becomes like your North Star, right, for what you're building. And as I say, it's the foundation of what we call inside the Business Growth Academy, embodied leadership. We talk about, and I'll unpack these at different levels throughout the podcast, but we talk about 5 levels of embodied leadership. And this is really about you becoming the version of you that not only creates that vision, crafts that vision, but achieves that vision, right? These are two very, very different parts of vision. It starts with crafting it in the first place. And that is that foundational part. And as I say, without it, we have no direction. You lose a sense of purpose. It's really difficult to hire good people to support you in your business when we lack that, because we can't get them, right, involved and on board with something. So what are the sorts of questions, right, that you want to be asking yourself? Well, frankly, the first place I love to go is to really jump forwards and to, go forwards 5 years, frankly, go forwards 10 years. Sometimes it's easier to go out and really put some distance because it gets us into kind of what I call more creative, magical thinking, right? If we start to think about vision in just a year from now, it can be tricky because most of us at this stage in our life relate to 12 months. And then we start to go, it's just not possible. It's 12 months. And we start to talk ourselves out of it. But I would really encourage you to think through that lens of my favorite question, the champagne question, right? That you and I are meeting 10 years from now. What must have happened for you to feel really satisfied and proud with your progress? And then start to journal those ideas. It's like, imagine that we're cracking open a bottle of champagne and we're celebrating. What do you want to be celebrating? And get really specific. This is key with vision. Most people's visions are so generic that we couldn't get somebody on board to help us to achieve it, right? Talking about, I want freedom. I want more money. I want the love of my life. I want a big house, right? Whatever those things are that we say, right? I want to build a business that does this, right? They're just so non-specific that if we were to ask other people to help us, they wouldn't be able to. So you've got to start to really paint the picture so that somebody else can really see it. They can understand what you want. And it all starts there, right? Crafting that compelling vision. Now, what's also interesting when we start to think about vision and what we really want to create in the world is that something else comes up as well. This is where our conditioned tendencies under stress or under pressure tend to show up. It's those places that we all of a sudden stop ourselves, frankly. It's the places that we can get into self-sabotage. It's the places that you might start to even feel, right, some constriction in your body. You start to feel that smallness coming back in. You start to notice the self-talk, right? The stories that you tell yourself, the stories that previously you've bought into that you allow to stop you. Let's say your persistent moods come in as well, right? We all live inside a persistent mood. And yours might be one of stress. It might be one of frustration. It might be one of overwhelm or anxiety, right? Hopefully, you're going to start to live inside of a new mood, right? As you are growing your business and really seeing what you're capable of. Hope, optimism, empowerment, confidence, right? All of those other things, joy. But oftentimes those conditioned tendencies show up. And those are the places, again, that we stop ourselves. So part of crafting your vision, when I'm working with our clients, we start to look at, yes, what is it that you really want? But where will you stop yourself? Where are those things that in the past have got in the way? And now let's start to build some strategies around them. And you know what's really interesting? There's one kind of conditioned tendency that comes up a lot. I tease my own clients with this. I'm teasing you lovingly as well. I work with a lot of smart women, incredible, smart, highly accomplished women. And one of the big tendencies that comes up is overthinking. We start to get into how we start to overthink things, right? We start to overcomplicate how we're going to do something. And that in of itself, frankly, can slow us down or completely stop us. So as you start to think about building that vision of what you really want, right, you also going to start to look at, yes, but where in the past have you stopped yourself? Where might those roadblocks be moving forwards so that you can actually start to develop some new strategies? Now, let's come back into vision for one moment. And again, this is why it takes several iterations to actually work on this. And it's typically not just a one and done process. Because for many people, we've been so conditioned to think about what everybody, frankly, what society tells us is important. Perhaps what society tells us a successful business should look like. And perhaps you've got a very, very different vision, right? So I'm thinking right now of one of my clients, Lisa. She's actually a female attorney. Absolutely adore her. Lisa, if you're tuning into this, you know I'm giving you a shout out here. Lisa left her law firm actually at the beginning of COVID because it wasn't aligned, right? It wasn't aligned with her. It wasn't aligned. There was nothing bad, but the vision of that firm wasn't aligned with how she wanted to do business and how she felt she could serve her clients. And she really was sitting there thinking, no, I've got a better way to do things. Now, Lisa's vision way back then was she had 2 children. I can't remember their ages back then, but they were possibly something like 8 and 10. So still relatively young, needed, mum's input and help with things and running around to sports events and all of the things, right, that busy, professional, working mums do. And her vision, her initial vision was to build a virtual law firm. That was what she wanted. She didn't want to be schlepping around into town. She didn't want to be getting in the car. She didn't want to have to be burdened by, she lives in Colorado, so dealing with the snow in the winter, rescheduling things. So the very first vision was, I want to build a virtual law firm. And the second part of her vision was, and I want to build a law firm that is truly relational and not based on just transactions, just getting the work in, doing it, and kind of moving on. So she had those things. Now, she also had some, let's say, some constraints around the amount of time that she could actually work back then. As I say, there were certain things to do with her children, her family, things that were important, right? So it was really important that she wasn't building that firm the old school way where you just keep working and working and working and putting in, 60 hours, 70 hours a week, right? That's not what she wanted. So part of that crafting of the vision can also be around what you don't want. And that's really important. It's sometimes, frankly, just as important as what you do want. Because sometimes what we find is if we don't get clear on what we don't want and put those constraints, we can find ourselves there. So as you start to think about your vision, yes, think about your constraints. What don't you want? What is no longer acceptable for you? What are the hours, let's say, that you don't want to be working? What are the types of clients you don't want to be serving? What's the type of marketing you don't want to be doing? Right? All of those things. What's the delivery that you don't want to be involved in? What's the bigger contribution you want to be making with your business, right? A lot of our clients love to be making an impact in their community. That's a really important part of their business model. It's impact. And it might not always be directly through their clients, but it might be that their business enables them, right, to tap into some philanthropic sides, right, of their community and some work as well. So you want to be thinking about all of those things. And then, yes, what are going to be, right, your conditioned tendencies that might get in the way? What are some limiting beliefs that already pop up as you start to craft that vision? And for now, even just noting them down can be important, right? Noticing them is sometimes enough to just go, hang on a minute. That's ridiculous. I'm putting it in black and white. Why am I believing this, right? It's those classics. Who am I to think that I could do this? Who am I, right? I'm not smart enough, quick enough, old enough, young enough, pretty enough, whatever enough. qualified enough, right? Experienced enough, like all of these things that we put in place that start to stop us. Once you've got your vision, though, and this is a really important piece, and I said to you, this is part of your role as leader in the business. And I think that this is where so many people make mistakes. Craft the vision, and then it gets pushed to one side. And frankly, even if I asked you right now, what are the goals? What are the top 3 goals that you're actually working on right now in your business? Could you roll them off like top of your head, like just like that with real clarity? Or would you go, hang on a minute, I need to go and look somewhere? Because when I ask that question, typically it's oh, what am I working on? Right? These things get lost. Well, imagine if vision is the driving force for your business and it's that North Star, and you, as the business owner, keep forgetting it. Right? How helpful is that? It's really not that helpful. Can't expect others to get on board. So what we also need around vision is we need practices that keep it alive and that keep it really embedded. That's why I say as well, embedded and embodied. When I'm saying to my clients, like, you have to be the vision, you have to be the version of you that is capable of achieving that vision as well. And you have to keep it alive. So with our clients, one of the exercises that we go through is actively declaring that vision, right? We make a declaration. I'm not going to go into this today, but it really is a way to capture, if you like, the essence of your vision and what you're working towards in 1 to 2 sentences. We call it a leadership declaration. And it is something that you are committed to. And with that leadership declaration, you immediately start to engage with that bigger vision of what you're working towards, right? So I would encourage you as well to think about, how can you keep it alive? There are several ways that you can do that. Again, you can think of it very succinctly if you can think about it through the lens of a couple of sentences, but that you repeat every single day. Is it a letter that you write to yourself from the future? These are exercises that we've done with our clients as well, where they write themselves that letter, having achieved it. But then you keep reading that letter back to yourself. That's a very powerful tool for A, keeping that vision top of mind, and B, keeping yourself emotionally engaged, right, with the excitement and that sense of accomplishment of achieving it. Plus, it starts to really get it into your mind as to, problem solving, right? Your mind, you're feeding your mind with it, and your mind is now going to start to problem solve and come up creatively with ideas of how might you actually achieve it. So these are really important exercises, but you have to keep it alive. As well as, and this is probably one of the most challenging aspects of vision that some of you won't want to hear. You have to be the person today, right? You've got to become that person today that is capable of achieving that vision. You have got to build your mindset, your habits, the skill set, the risk taking, frankly, the investing in yourself, all of those things. You have to be that version of you now. It starts now. Most people have this back to front. They say, when I have those results, right? When I have off in the future, I will be different. And they wonder why 3 years go past, 5 years go past, 10 years go past, and nothing has changed because it's completely back to front. It's impossible. If you keep being the same version of you today, you will keep getting the same results. It's true. And you can see that playing out in your own life. You have to do something different. And so part of that is, how do I need to show up today? You've heard me talk about playing full out, playing to win and not playing not to lose. And this is really how it comes into play with your vision, right? It's like, how do I start to make those things happen? How do I start to think about this differently? How do I get the support? How do I hire the coach? How do I do those things now when I don't have the results that I want. This is how we actually move ahead. So crafting that vision is the first step. Then it's starting to get really, really honest about, where do you stop yourself? Where have you stopped yourself? Where have you slowed yourself down? We all have places that we go to. Once you start to examine those, you will see the really good news is it's a very predictable pattern. I love patterns because once we see them, we can change them. And that's a lot of the growth that we have to do. It's a lot of the growth that we do with our clients inside of the Business Growth Academy, right? We work on personal growth, expanding you as a leader so that you can achieve more, as well as the strategic, right, and the tactics that are involved in achieving that vision. But the two need to go hand in hand. And this is where we create alignment. And when we've got alignment, things become a lot easier. So I'd love to hear from you. What's resonating in today's episode? Where are you stopping? What is that big vision? Honestly, I'd love to hear from you. And I promise you as well, you send me an email or frankly, find me on social. You can find all my social channels on the podcast as well. Send me a DM. I'd love to know, like, really, what's that secret big vision that you don't dare to share with anybody else? You possibly haven't even shared it fully with yourself. And I'd love to support you in achieving that. But it does start with declaring it first. And as always, leave a positive review. It helps us to get more reach. It helps us to serve more women that need to hear these really powerful messages. And don't forget to hit the subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Can't wait to catch you very soon.